everyone. Welcome to episode number 250 of Bill Man the Sport Guys podcast. I'm your host, Bill Man the Sports Guy. Today's episode is pretty simple. We're just going to go over my thoughts on the NHL trades that have happened slightly before the trade deadline, meaning like the day of, because there were some trades that have happened, and also the trade deadline today. So, first, we're going to talk about a trade that I didn't really get to talk about prior to in the previous episodes. It involves the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Colorado Avalanche, as the Colorado Avalanche get Brett Kulak, and that's just it, in exchange for Samuel Girard and a 2028 second round pick. So, this is kind of a crazy move. This is a good trade for both teams. For Colorado, Brett Kulak is a very good bottom six defenseman. He can move the puck really well, and it should honestly help out their blue line. And I like the addition of Kulak on a very good Colorado Avalanche team. And the as for the Pittsburgh Penguins, they're going to get a younger defenseman in Samuel Girard, and he has 1 year left at a $5 million cap hit. And for a while, the Avalanche made it clear that he was available. So I really like this move a lot from both sides. Okay, Chicago did make two trades with the Edmonton Oilers. So first, let's go with the oldest one that happened, when Chicago traded Connor Murphy to the Edmonton Oilers, and Edmonton's gonna only save like 50% of his salary of his $4.4 million cap hit, which I believe that brings it down to 1.5, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong on the math part. In exchange, Chicago's going to get two second round draft picks of 2028. So, from the Edmonton Oilers' point of view, Stan Bowman gets to bring back another player that he brought in during his GM tenure. In case you did not know, Connor Murphy actually came to the Blackhawks in 2017 involving Nicholas Hjalmarsson. So he gets to go play not only for a beast Edmonton Oilers team, but to possibly help them get over the edge of the Stanley Cup Finals, as they made it the last two seasons, only to lose to the Florida Panthers. Now, from Chicago's point of view, there really isn't a lot. And even as a Blackhawks fan, I had a feeling in the back of my mind that Kyle Davidson was going to try trade anybody with like 1 year left on their contract. So Jason Dickinson, who we're going to get to, actually, we'll get to him next. Connor Murphy. It really doesn't surprise me. And let's just go ahead and talk about the other one. Chicago does trade Jason Dickinson and Colton Dach to the Edmonton Oilers, and Edmonton will send Andrew Mangiapane and a conditional first round 2027 pick. So conditional, it could be in the 11 to 16 range, maybe even top 10 for Chicago. But Edmonton could also make the call if they want to send a later draft pick, basically what that means. From Chicago's point of view, I think Mangiapane is going to be a fine top nine, bottom six player for Chicago, probably for the rest of the season. And we'll see what happens in the offseason. So I'm fine with this move. And actually, Chicago did very well. I thought Kyle Davidson did a really good job in getting value back from Jason Dickinson, that a first round pick. And now Edmonton doesn't even have a first round pick, which is even insane. And this, well, does Jason Dickinson help out defensively for the Oilers? Yes. Offensively, I mean, he had one season where he scored 22 goals, but that was about it. So, kind of basically a fleece job by Chicago. And Colton Dach hasn't quite lived it up to the NHL yet. And he also hasn't fully played a role in the NHL. He's kind of been in and out of the bottom six. So we'll see how he does. I can't really say how well he'll do for Edmonton, but I think this trade is perfect for Chicago. It's an okay move for Edmonton. Next up, Michael McCarron is going from the Nashville Predators to the Minnesota Wild for a 2028 second round pick. You know, Nashville, I'm surprised that all it took was just a second round pick. And we'll see how it pans out at the end of the day. Now, as for Minnesota, kind of a steep price, but reality, sort of the only move, and I kind of questioned their thought process there. All right, next up. The Vancouver Canucks are moving on from Tyler Myers as he's going to the Dallas Stars for a 2027 and a 2029. So the 2029 is a fourth round pick, 2027 is a second round pick. So from Vancouver's point of view, I thought the pricing was a bit steep, but it will give more younger defensemen like Tom Willander and Kirill Kudryavtsev more shot to play in the NHL this season. Now, for Dallas, he is not a rental. He has honestly a $1.5 million cap hit and another year left, I believe, or 2 years. And honestly, I think he's going to be really well in the bottom defenseman pairing for Dallas and his physical play that I think is going to really help Dallas in their quest for the Stanley Cup this season. Now let's go to a big trade. The Calgary Flames. They were honestly active. They traded Mackenzie Weegar to the Utah Mammoth. And in return, Calgary got not one, not two, but three 2026 draft picks in return. I believe they were second or third round, if I'm not mistaken. Jonathan Castanga, who's a 19-year-old prospect, and veteran defenseman Oli Mata. So, from the Flames' point of view, this is actually pretty good acid business from the Flames' point of view. And three draft picks, I would gladly take that any time and day of the week. And they're going to hold on to Castanga. I really think he'll do well in this young Calgary Flames team. And basically, Olimata, just a solid D that's just there. And, Uyghur, I mean, Utah might have a really, really good top six defense pairing. Their entire defense pairing from top to bottom. This quite interesting. I gotta admit it. Very good move by Utah and Calgary. All right, next up, we're actually sorry, I have this written down. So the Washington Capitals, oh boy, they trade center Nick Dowd to the Las Vegas Golden Knights for goaltending prospect Jesper Vikman, a 2027 third round, and a 2029 second round pick. Honestly, pretty good move from Vegas's point of view. If Nick Dowd, his offense is kind of dried up in Washington, but if he could be the good bottom six center he is, and maybe give you 10, 15 goals a season, then I think this trade will work out well. But from Washington's point of view, they're actually gonna get a younger goalie prospect in Jesper Vikman. Will he be the answer? I'm not really sure. But and then they get a couple draft picks, which they're draft picks at the end of the day. But good, good move from Vegas's point of view, but kind of questionable on Washington. Next up, the Toronto Maple Leafs are trading center Nicholas Waugh to the Colorado Avalanche for a 2026 fifth round, 2027 first round, and a 2028 draft pick. Waugh is a solid bottom six center for Colorado. I hope this is not the only move. Well, they made a pretty good move. And if it's a bad move, he does kill penalties and he's okay offensively. And then for Toronto, kind of shocked that was the only value that they were able to get returned as the team overall is having quite of a bad year. So not bad from Toronto, but also good move from Colorado. All right, next up, Jeff Petrie, defenseman, is going to the Minnesota Wild from the Florida Panthers for a fifth round pick. I don't have a whole lot to say a fifth round pick is a fifth round pick. Florida, there's a chance that Florida might try make the playoffs. And if that's the case, because at the time of this recording, Florida is 10 points out of the playoff spot. And, you know, Florida was interesting to say the least. I think Jeff Petrie is going to do very well for Minnesota, and I think Minnesota's really going to go at it this year. They're really stacking up, and adding Jeff Petrie really will help the needle a bit on the blue line. But from Florida, this season, let's just call it a lost year for the Panthers. They should just call it a year and just stock for a possible top 10 draft pick. So this is an okay move. Excuse me. Next up, the Dallas Stars are going to get Michael Bunting from the Nashville Predators for a 2026 third round pick. Nashville should keep rebuilding, but at the same time, they didn't quite do a lot because they held on to Ryan O'Reilly and the prices they were asking were very high. You know, they're just going to keep getting draft picks, and whatever helps you rebuild, I guess. Now, for Dallas, Bunting's still a really solid forward, and he's going to a playoff team in the Dallas Stars, so I can't wait to see what potential he'll actually bring. All right, next up, the Ottawa Senators have acquired Warren Fogle and a conditional third round pick in the 2026 NHL draft, and the Kings are going to get a second round pick and a third round pick. The second round pick is a conditional. No, I checked that. It's the third round pick that's conditional that they're going to get, and both of them are 2026 picks. And the Kings, I feel really sad for them because they have struggled quite a bit this year. And, Warren Fogle, he's a really good top nine player, good penalty killer, good solid offensive and defensive player around. And going to a young team in the Ottawa Senators, I think will help revive his game. Then we got the Columbus Blue Jackets trading actually acquiring, check that, they're acquiring Connor Garland from the Vancouver Canucks. And in exchange, Columbus is going to send a third round pick in the 2026 NHL draft and a second round pick in 2028. I am so sorry for Vancouver fans. I am sorry that what they have done is just not panning out. You lost Quinn Hughes. Rightfully so. Connor Garland was going to get traded anyway. So, yeah. Connor Garland, I think he's really going to help out Columbus's push for the playoffs. And Vancouver, they're really heading to a rebuild. And I, from now, even though the trade deadline's over, but from now to the offseason, I really don't expect this to be the only move. Next up, the Buffalo Sabres have acquired Logan Stanley and Luke Schenn from the Winnipeg Jets for forward Isaac Rosen, defensive Jacob Bryson, a second round pick in 2027, and a conditional fourth round pick in 2026. I think at the time of this recording, the Buffalo Sabres, they're second in their division in the East. And call me crazy, ladies and gentlemen, but I think the Buffalo Sabres, we could potentially and finally see them in the playoffs for the first time since 2011. Now, pretend you didn't hear that. I don't want anything bad to happen to the Sabres after this video. The whole Disney, right? When you wish upon a star, there's makes no difference who you are, anything will help and desires come to you. Yeah, I think that's going to describe the Buffalo Sabres. And Shen and Stanley will be both good defensemen in their roles. Jermo Kakerlainen has really turned the Sabres around, and let's hope they make the playoffs. I know people might say, hey, Buffalo Sabres, Stanley Cup contenders, let's make the playoffs first. Let's do that. All right, next up, we have Bobby Brink going to the Minnesota Wild. In exchange, Philadelphia's going to trade defenseman David Jiricek to Minnesota. And solid move. I think Jiricek, good solid player all around that I think he'll really help out Minnesota this year. And he's a very good puck moving defenseman. Good solid player overall. Bobby Brink, I think he'll do well for oh no, I'm sorry. He'll do well for Philadelphia. Bobby Brink, very solid forward for Minnesota. I think he'll do well. There just isn't a lot for me to say about it. All right, the last trade the Chicago Blackhawks made, they traded their captain Nick Foligno to the Minnesota Wild for this lovely term when it comes to sport trades, future considerations. They could receive a draft pick, they could receive a prospect. The possibilities are never endless. And I'm happy for Nick Foligno that he not only is he going to play with his brother Marcus, who's playing for the Minnesota Wild, but he's finally going to get a true Stanley Cup chance. And the Wild, they're really going at it. And honestly, call me crazy, but I hope the Wild win a Stanley Cup for Nick Foligno. And just imagine the two brothers win a Stanley Cup. How awesome would that be? All right. So this trade is true. I was very hesitant to mention in today's video, but it's true at the end of the day. Corey Perry is going back to the Tampa Bay Lightning for the Los Angeles Kings. Now, it says it on the website. Unless if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. But Corey Perry is going to go back to Tampa Bay accordingly. And the Kings are going to get a second round pick in 2028. So can Corey Perry finally win a Stanley Cup? Tampa Bay Lightning in the Stanley Cup Finals. Pretend you didn't hear that, but guarantee that. And good forward that'll help out the Lightning. And he had an okay year for LA. And the Kings, they're just gonna get a draft pick in return. So not too much to say. So forward Emmer Soderblom is going to the Pittsburgh Penguins, and the Detroit Red Wings are going to get a third round pick in 2026. I like this move for Pittsburgh. They get a younger forward. Unfortunately, it didn't work out well in Detroit, so hopefully Detroit. Detroit, I think they'll be fine, but for Pittsburgh, they get a younger forward that will really be part of the future. So good move for both teams. Nick Delorier is going from Philadelphia to Carolina for a conditional seven-round pick in 2027. Delorier is basically just a physical guy, maybe tripping 5 to 10 goals a season, but nothing special after that. And okay move from Carolina and Philadelphia. They were able to get a draft pick in return, so it's not so bad. Now, couple more big trades to talk about. The Detroit Red Wings acquired Justin Falk from the St. Louis Blues for a first round pick and a third round pick for this year in 2026. And Detroit is going to trade Justin Hall, defenseman, and unsigned forward prospect Dmitry Butchinglov. Now, I don't know if Detroit is going to hold on to a salary from Justin Hall. I believe they will. And, they had to free themselves from the Justin Hall contract. So he's going to a Blues team who I think will help out their younger defensemen. And, it's okay. Not a bad move at all for Detroit. They just had to free themselves from the Justin Hall contract. So in the end, I think this will help out. And, good move. And for St. Louis, they're getting younger. And oops. Sorry, I have stuff going like all over the place. But anyway, as I was saying, uh whatever. They're gonna get a younger player. So that's really all I gotta say. All right. Next up, John Carlson going to Anaheim for a first round in 2026, a third round 2027. Both of them are conditionals. So conditionals, they're conditionals. But this one truly came out of left field. I don't think any Capitals fan, not even hockey fans like myself, nobody in their right mind ever thought John Carlson was going to get traded. And the Capitals, here's my question. Now that John Carlson's gone, who spent 17 years of his career with the Capitals, by the way, and by the way, Carlson, really good defenseman. I'm very excited that he's going to a younger team in Anaheim. He will truly lead the blue line to the potential. And for Washington, what this is another year they're not going to make the playoffs. But here's my question now. What does this mean for Alex Ovechkin? Does he still stay in Washington? Does he leave for the KHL in Russia? Or does he maybe, in quotation marks, stay in the NHL, but to a different team? Chicago, maybe? But who knows? That one truly came out of left field. I did not see that one coming. David Perron going back to Detroit, and Ottawa's going to get a conditional fourth round pick. Detroit, Ottawa got Warren Fogle, so Perron, this trade just feels like a whatever move to me, in my opinion. Okay, we have two more trades to talk about, actually. Braden Shen. The St. Louis Blues are going to trade Braden Shen to the New York Islanders for a first and third round for 2026 for Jonathan Drouin and goalie Marcus Skidolf. Drouin, having a met here with the Islanders, I think he'll do fine in St. Louis, but I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe this is Drouin's 13 or 14 in the past 3 years. And Gedeloff, good goalie, young goalie that I hope will pan out well for St. Louis. Braden Shen, this feels really weird from an Islanders point of view. At one point, the Islanders looked like they were going on a full-on rebuild, but then after acquiring Braden Shen and the play that Matthew Schaefer, their young defenseman's playing, I guess the Islanders might veto this whole rebuild thing. To me, this trade feels so weird. And I can't understand this one at all from both sides. This feels really, really weird. Let me know your thoughts and opinions. And you can always let me know on Twitter at Billman Sports, Instagram at Billman Sports Guy, and here on YouTube at Billman Sports Guy. All right, I know I said two more, but there's actually three more. The Calgary Flames. We're going to talk about the other one because the next one was huge. So the Calgary Flames have acquired Ryan Strome from the Anaheim Ducks for a seventh round pick. Ryan Strome, still a good defensive center, but offensively, that's kind of gone dust in the wind. I think he'll be fine for the rest of the season with Calgary. And honestly, Anaheim's going to get a younger draft pick. And this will give more of their young players more potential to play. Now to the biggest trade. The Calgary Flames have traded Nazem Kadri. He is going back to the Colorado Avalanche, along with a fourth round pick in 2027. Calgary is going to get a conditional first round pick in 2028. Good chance it's going to be a bottom 10 knowing it's Colorado. A conditional second round pick in 2027, so that could mean a later one. Victor Olofsson and prospect forward, actually, Maximilian Curran. Curran, a young player that's going to be part of the Flames' future and part of their direction as of right now. So I think we will definitely see him in the Flames roster probably next season at best. Maybe. Now, Victor Olofsson, he was having a really good year with Colorado, solid year for Colorado. So I think, the Flames also do need NHL talent. So adding a guy like Olofsson does make sense. Now, for Colorado, Nazem Kadri in their second, third line center, that is really, really good behind Nathan MacKinnon. Kadri is going back to the team that he won a Stanley Cup, which he won with the Colorado Avalanche back in 2022. So potentially, could this be the Avalanche? Could the Avalanche maybe be the next dynasty in the rest of the 2020s, maybe early 2030s? And, the Avalanche, they're getting a really good center, Nazem Kadri, who, yeah, he's a little bit older, but he's still a really good top six player. And, fourth round pick, that means another draft pick. So overall, very good move on both ends. And this basically concludes today's episode 250 of Bill Man the Sport Guys podcast. I'm your host, Bill Man the Sports Guy. I hope you all have a fantastic weekend. Stay tuned for episode number 251. Peace.